Welcome to Someone Doing Something, a channel all about, well, us, humans, doing our darndest to move forward in the world. Today we're talking about success in a creative field. Now, most of what this channel covers is a range of topics dealing with personal development, mental health, and spiritual connection. Typically, unless I have a guest on board, through a Jewish perspective or a Jewish lens. Because I have a guest, we're going to have a little bit of a diversity in voices, although that doesn't really matter for this conversation, because this conversation we're talking, again, about success in a creative field. I would venture to say that both of us have abstract ways of operating in the world.
Okay.
And because of that, over the years, my 12 years working for myself, I don't know how long you've been in a creative endeavor, most of your life.
Almost 30.
About 30 years in a creative field, we have had to develop and implement
Or 30.
different strategies in order to be successful and maintain. I would say, for me, a definition of success is being able to survive and work in a creative aspect. Like, there's very few artists and writers and photographers and people who actually make a living out of their career. And while I'm not a multi-millionaire and I don't own 17 houses or a yacht, I have been able to work for myself, and I have been able to comfortably, continually grow and improve my craft and my art and my expression in a multitude of fields. For me, it's been photography, it's been videography, event photography, weddings, then moving on to more, commercial stuff and event-based stuff in Washington, D.C., Then I moved into a creative endeavor in the board game space on YouTube. I built a successful YouTube channel that is still running to this day. And now I'm moving into this realm of, because I have a desire to spend my time learning and growing as much as I can, I'm moving into a platform that will allow me and open the door for me to justify reading a book for 10 hours a day. Because then I can go talk about it and apply it, and it aims at what the creative thing I want to do is, which is improve, grow, and continue expanding my knowledge and my understanding of the world around me.
Yeah.
This is Michael Matthews, one of my oldest and dearest friends.
Aww.
And will you outline your creative acumen, I suppose? That's what I was doing there.
Wow.
I was proving to people that, like, hey, I've at least been successful in creative areas.
I don't know if I want to go into my entire creative acumen. What I will say is that
It's too much.
I've worked for some very large companies that you would know if I said them.
I'm not asking you to dox yourself.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying you're an artist, you're a graphic designer.
Yeah.
You've been successful in what fields?
Mostly I've been successful in photography and graphic design.
Yeah.
I started in music, and I had friends that went on to become incredibly successful in music.
Yep.
Very well-known friends. And we all had sort of similarities in the way that we approach things. And I think that them more than I did, obviously. But I kind of took that same energy and put it into my fields. But I have been a graphic artist. Most people would call me, back in the day, we would call me a multimedia artist for almost 30 years, to the point where I specialize in so many different fields that it's difficult to pin down what to call me. We still struggle with that. A design and development specialist, a multimedia expert, all of that stuff. I work in just about every different field that you can think of when it comes to creative endeavors.
And you've successfully been a employed, productive, creative artist for 30 years of your life, which again is a kind of remarkable thing. There's not a lot of people that claim that. Now, I know you could Google here on YouTube and probably find a bunch of people, like the top of the top, the cream of the wheat, that'll like shout at you for 15 minutes about what you need to do, like go hustle hard and take your shirt off and like yard sale on Thursdays to get there. But it's just an argument on our behalf, an argument on this channel's behalf, if you'll hit that subscribe button down below, it coming from real guys like that are working, for the mass majority, for almost all of my career, below six figures, like getting there. I think I had 1 year where through my creative endeavors, I crossed six figures.
Oh, really?
I think I had 1 year.
Nice.
I think in some ways the lessons that we have and the advice that we have is maybe more meaningful because it comes from people that are just like the people watching, not
oh man,
not the top brokers of.
I didn't break six figures for, I would say 90% of my career. Yeah.
So
and
okay,
it's hard.
The advice we have. I've got 5 points. How many points do you have?
Just 3.
So why don't I start?
Go ahead,
and we'll pop back and forth.
Yeah.
My biggest advice for those being or exploring or that have the personality that means they must do something creative. I'll be honest, myself, I don't think I could function in the world if I wasn't doing something I was interested in a creative outlet. Like, if I had just a day-to-day, 8 to 5 job, I would have something on the side, that had a creative expression to it.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I would really struggle.
Same.
Struggle.
Yeah.
And so my advice to anyone that wants to make a career or be successful in a creative field starts with the advice that is do what sells. I met a lot of landscape photographies across the course of my journey. I met a lot of people that wanted to...
I almost wrote something similar down as one of my points.
I met a lot of people that wanted to do animal photos or bird photos or flower photos, and they thought that they would talk their neighbors into buying copies to hang on their wall, and that's just not the reality. For me, I loved photography, but I also loved, and did it in the lens of what would sell. I was a wedding photographer, I was an event photographer, I was a commercial photographer. I pursued opportunities when they opened up.
Yeah.
And so you can't try to force the world to purchase or buy or invest in the art that you're creating. If you're creating art and you need to do it as a creative thing, then that's great, but use those skills that you have in an application that creates value for other people around you, because not everyone's artists, and not everyone wants to support artists. So you can go out and do your artistic photography, but use that skill that you have from doing that and apply it in a realm or a lens that is already profitable in the world.
Yeah, you just touched on something that, is incredibly important. And I've there was a point when I worked for a city, and I worked for tourism, and we would support all of these artists, and I would try to explain to them that they had beautiful work. First
Great
of all,
stuff.
Let me just say,
there are artists that are amazing out there.
Yeah,
and they'll never once in their life make a profit on it.
It made me so sad because there were these top-notch artists, and you would see their stuff, and it was amazing. And I would try to, as somebody who has worked in marketing and advertising, I would try to tell them, okay, this is amazing. Somebody's going to buy it. I promise somebody is going to, if you can get that person to see it, they're going to buy it.
Yes.
But with all these people coming into your shop, they're stopping in. You got to figure out, how do I just keep people coming in? What's the little thing that I can do that everybody loves?
Yeah.
That, and in this town, there was tours that would come through. There's tourists, and tourists don't have $1,000 to spend.
What's the tiny little pocket thing I can do?
$5, $20. And there was one artist in particular, he was a woodworker, and he got it. He made beautiful benches, and he made all these gorgeous things, but then he would make, spoons and cutting boards. But his cutting boards were cool. They weren't just, regular cutting boards. They were shaped like the state.
But the people that were there could buy it.
Yeah, and these people would come in, and they would just buy up his stuff, and he would be like, Mike, and I'd come over at the end of the day, and he'd show me his wad of cash, and it was like, oh, dude, what? And he's like, yeah, I made this much money today. And then once in a while, somebody would buy that passion project of his, and he would be over the moon. And I know it sucks. It feels like you're selling out.
If you're the best wedding photographer, if you're the best event and wedding photographer ever, one day you might sell a landscape photo to Walmart.
Yeah, man.
You might.
I sold some of mine to a hotel once.
Just saying.
I think I sold 6 photos to a hotel chain. Of the hundreds, and they weren't because usually I do travel and tourism photography or portrait photography. And when I was working as a photographer, I had one hotel chain that was like, we really like your photography. We want to put it in our hotels. And I said, okay. And I gave them 6, and it was amazing. I felt so good. There was only 2 times that ever happened in my career.
Yeah.
All of my money has been made in other ways. They were the most satisfying and gratifying.
Mm-hmm.
But if I hadn't done that, I mean, like, that paid the bills.
Mm-hmm.
But they found out about me from the other stuff I was doing, the little things that I was doing just to make ends meet. You know?
Okay, so that's my first point.
Yeah, Good point.
Do what sells. You have to.
Good point. My first point is know your worth. I think this is clutch, man, because there's a million bad actors out there. There's a million kids that have downloaded Photoshop or downloaded the free version of DaVinci and or whatever, or pirated Premiere, and they're doing all of this work, and they suck. Let's be honest, they suck. There are some kids out there, admittedly, that can make an amazing video with their iPhone. Not everybody can do that, and just because those 3 or 4 kids can do that doesn't mean that what you do is worth less. You need to know that you shouldn't be doing stuff for free. You know, there's this whole... It's kind of my second point, and I don't know if I should run into my second point. But, you know, there will be people that will be like, well, you'll get so much exposure. No, man. Don't. Exposure doesn't pay the bills. Know how much you're worth. You know, look at your time. Calculate how much you want for your time. And people don't understand how much time and effort and work and study you've put into learning this.
I will add to that, though.
Okay.
Knowing your worth is excruciatingly valuable.
Yeah.
And yet, if you know your worth, you yourself can determine when an opportunity, even if it doesn't pay, pays worth in other forms.
That was my second point.
Okay, so we won't get there.
No,
okay,
you're 100%. Yeah.
So the concept of knowing your worth is the first place you have to start.
I agree.
Know how much value you bring.
That's my point.
And know where you can negotiate, and know where someone might be taking advantage of you.
And value your time.
They will if they can.
Yes, they will.
Okay.
Value your time.
Moving on down to my second point.
Go ahead.
Sacrifice.
Nope. You're wrong. Oh, I choked on my whiskey. Go ahead.
That was the worst interruption. You tried. You tried really hard.
Trying to be funny.
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't get it. You just hiccuped bourbon.
That was just hot.
So my second point is sacrifice to do. So if you want to pursue a creative endeavor,
okay,
you have to understand that there's going to be a cost to that, because you are the exception to the societal rule. You are the artist. You are the creative. You are the abstract thinker. You are the person who wants to do the thing that no one in the world gets to do, which is you want to work in a capacity that makes it so you enjoy what you're doing. And so, in order to get there, when you're a teenager, when you're in your 20s, even when you're older and maybe you're venturing off into a brand new thing, there is always going to be some price to pay in order to get there. I know for me, I have worked long shifts and worked at night. I have slept on a couch for years.
Yes.
I have slept on park benches for a period of months. I have lived out of a backpack. I have moved home to my dad's house. You have to be willing to pay the price. Because there will be a price that must be paid. I have traveled across the country sleeping in my car and driving for like 15 hours to get to a photo shoot or get to a wedding because I booked one in one state and then one in another state.
Yeah, man.
Right? So any artist, any creative will kind of romanticize this journey that they've been on. And I'm at risk of doing so as I get older and as I'm more set and steadfast in the places I've been and where I am now in terms of being more comfortable and successful.
Yeah.
But the reality is, in the moment of these past romanticized struggles, I was paying and suffering the price that was necessary for me to get here. Mm-hmm. So, when you're trying to be successful in a creative field, one, recognize that there's going to be a price to pay. Be willing to pay that price, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Don't quit. Don't stop along the way. Pay the darn price.
Yeah.
And then romanticize it and tell other people behind you that they have to also, be basically homeless and live on the streets. No, really. Like, what's your thoughts on this?
No, as a matter of fact, I have real world examples of this. not just from myself. I have friends, like I said, who have become super famous.
Yeah.
And
you have friends that are some of the most famous people in the world.
Yeah. And one of the things, like one of my most famous friends, he always, from day one, was like, "This is what I'm going to do with my life.
No matter what,
I'm going to be I'm going to be a singer."
Yeah.
And it didn't matter where we were or what we were doing. He was like, "This is what I'm going to do," and. I think back then we were all like, "Oh yeah, of course, man," and like we could all sing. We were all musicians, and he and I would sing together. But he had this extra, like, I don't care what it takes. So I watched him go through 4 or 5 bands, 4 or 5, like, well, we got a studio in my buddy's basement, and we're trying to make it work. And that went on for years. I would say almost 10 years it went on. And then, one day he got his first video. And then that band didn't work out. And then he ended up doing a song on a pretty big movie soundtrack. And it was like, whoa, hey. And that was a different band. That band fell apart. And then... And this is interesting, is we were in a tour bus together when he was with that band, and he was like, "You should try out for this band." And I was like, "No, I want to do my own thing." And he's like, "Fine." He ended up being in that band, and now it's one of the biggest bands. And he was just one of these people who always believed, like, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to do this. And was willing to take the hard road and willing to go the hard route no matter what it took. And he eventually... got there. I see that in you too.
Tony Hinchcliffe talks about the idea of like comedians that come from.
Dude, I think comedians
that come from stable homes with a good life aren't funny. They don't have the gumption to become funny.
I believe that.
And his experiments through, if anyone knows Kill Tony, his exploration through the world looking for the funniest people that have ever existed, as he brings on abstract strangers onto the stage. It is confirmed time and time again. He'll ask someone, he'll be like, "Hey, were your parents divorced?" "No, both my parents are together." "Oh yeah, that makes sense." The reason being is that a creative application requires sacrifice in some form. I don't know what your sacrifice is going to be. I have no idea. You might be born to the richest, you might be born to like Elon Musk's child. If you're the child of a multi-millionaire or billionaire, some people will look at your life and they'll say, "You're not going to have any challenges in front of you." Wrong. If you're creative and you want to do and pursue a creative pursuit, there will be challenges.
No matter
you
what.
You have to pay the price. It's not going to be
suck.
You're not going to miss a meal. Some of us will miss a meal. You're not going to miss a meal. I'll tell you what. The guilt associated with being creative or whatever it is, the scorn that comes from your lawyer father, there's a challenge that's going to be taken from your flesh for you to create something worthwhile.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree. There's got to be the best ideas come from some of the hardest moments. So, like when you're going through the hard parts, sometimes that's the best motivator. That's the drive right there. So yeah, good point. Good point.
Number 2.
My last note.
I started tiptoeing on it.
Point number 2 was exposure doesn't pay the bills, and that's something that will come up a lot of times in your
point's
career.
Exposure doesn't pay the bills?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Because the point I was making was the opposite of this.
No, I think there's a nuance there.
You define yours, I'll jump in a little bit. Yeah.
Because I was going to say there are exceptions.
Okay.
But for the most part, exposure will not pay the bills, ever. And there will be so many people that... Oh, man. I don't want to say names. I had another famous musician say that, well, I'm a famous musician, so make my stuff. And I was like, okay. And at the time I thought, well, yeah, he's a famous musician. I should make his stuff. And I did end up getting paid. It was a very small amount, but like really small, not even enough to pay my rent. But I took it and I did it, and I've done that for famous photographers. I've done that for a lot of people.
I wasn't famous.
No, you were not the. I never made anything for. Well, I did make the Quack a Love logo, but I would do this, and at first I would do it just because I wanted the exposure. Because I thought, oh man, everybody's gonna see my stuff. They don't see your stuff. They see the person that you're making the stuff for, and that's the part where like younger designers and artists get confused. They don't see your stuff. They see what you made for that person, and they associate it with that individual. Exposure doesn't mean crap. You are not going to get exposure, and it's not going to pay the bills. There are some instances where that does work. And those instances are when you are working for friends. When you're working for a friend.
Or building friendships.
Or building friendships and building, and that's actually my third point, but I'm not going to get there yet.
No! I keep stepping on it!
You're breaking all my stuff apart, Jesse. When you're working for people that care about you, they'll, somebody will come to them and they'll say, oh, wow, your thing is cool. And they'll point their finger to you. And they'll bring business your way. That's when exposure can pay your bills. And so when you're working for a friend, it's worth it to kind of give your friend a deal if you think that friend is going to be successful and they will plug you in the process. Then yes, it's worth it. But for most of the time, no.
If you know your value, like you stated at the beginning, you can then judge yourself, not relying on them.
Yes, absolutely.
What your value is worth for the exposure you're going to get. For instance, as a wedding photographer, getting to shoot at a brand new venue, providing pictures to that venue, building a relationship with the other people that are there, gaining experience,
and then the venue will plug you.
And getting into the friend group of the bride and groom you are with, there's a lot of potential value there. Enough that I might discount. Like if I'm charging $3,200, but I want to work for this client, and I want to work with this other videographer, and I want to work with this wedding planner,
I give them a discount.
I might drop down to $28. I might drop down to $22. Sometimes the wedding, if a wedding planner is bringing me a client, I might tell them on the phone, hey, listen, you know your client's budget. Let them know what my price normally is, and tell them that you convinced me to drop it to whatever you need it to be to fit into the budget. Why? Because that wedding planner brings me every other client they get. So there is a value. There is a value, but you have to be able to determine it yourself. And you
got to know your worth, and you got to know
your worth.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I'm saying, man. Yeah. You got to know.
I have by far been made richer by the creative collaborators I have had in my life.
Oh, 100%.
Than not.
Dude, I didn't write it down, but... Yeah. Well, did I? No, I did write it down. Oh, I wrote 4 points.
Okay. So that's fun. So I actually have... I was going to end at 3, but if you wrote 4, I'll take
No, I got 2 more, yeah.
Okay, my third. Always have some sense of what your 3 to 5 year vision is.
Ooh.
It's really, really important because a creative endeavor is never going to pay off tomorrow. And if you're 2.5 years in it, it still isn't going to pay off tomorrow. One of the mistakes I actually made in my last 5-year journey, my last 5-year journey went from a beginning of a pandemic, losing a big contract with a big client because of financial mismanagement on their part that cost me a lot of money.
Yeah.
And starting with a YouTube channel that had no subscribers. My 5-year goal was do this every week, every day, as much as possible, and in the end of 5 years, I'll end up somewhere really cool. One of the mistakes, and where I ended up, by the way, so you guys are curious, where I ended up was 48,000 subscribers, a few employees, about $300,000 to $350,000 a year coming into the company. That is where the peak of that journey was. But at the end of that 4.5, 5-year journey, I hadn't, during the duration of that, reframed the next 5 years. So right now, I'm back to reframing a 3 to 5 year plan, and if I had continued reframing it as I was going, I don't think I would have had that same challenge. So as you're starting a creative endeavor, you need to build a understanding of what it looks like to succeed, what that 3 to 5 year journey is, and what the cost associated with that journey will be. Yeah. Because once you know the cost, for instance, for me, do this every day for 5 years and you'll end up somewhere really cool. When it comes to this channel that you're watching right now, my cost is, for the next 3 to 5 years, be as purposeful about the posting schedule, the journey, and the community as I can be. Meaning, I respond to comments. I always make sure videos fit into the framework of what this channel is about, and I am trying to be ritualistic about setting up a schedule here on YouTube and my other social media platforms that is reliable and consistent. And if I do that for the next 3 to 5 years, I'll end up somewhere really cool. I've identified the cost. All I have to do now is pay it.
And you believe that you'll end up somewhere cool.
10,000%. I will probably be on, in 3 to 5 years, if I am consistent with what that cost is, this thing will be beyond my wildest dreams.
I love that about you. I love that optimism. It's more than optimism, it's certainty. And I think that's fascinating. And like you haven't been wrong.
No.
So far.
So always have a 3 to 5 year plan. Never count on tomorrow to be the answer to your problems.
I'm drooling on myself in the middle of your video.
I saw. All right, what's your third point?
My third point was network. My third point was network, and that network. When I say network, I don't mean network with people who are just like the schmoozy type. You know what I mean? Like, don't go to the things where you don't know anybody and be like, hey, look, what do you do? Oh, I do this. Oh, we should connect and hand out. That's a waste of your time.
I've always hated those atmospheres.
It's a waste of your time, I'm telling you right now.
Because everyone in that room is not being successful.
No, it's
none of them
such a waste of your time.
Even the speakers that they're paying $1,000 in membership fees.
It's so dumb.
The worst part is those speakers are making their entire profit off of those schmucks that are in that room getting self-help advice.
And if any of them see this video, they're going to be so upset right
By
now.
the way, if you could just hire me to be a public speaker at one of those events and or sub to my Patreon.
Oh wait, unless I'm there giving a speech.
Yeah.
Then
No, clearly there are
Yeah.
exceptions to every rule.
Worth it, every
but
minute.
For the most part, they're...
No. Network. When I say network, I mean network with other... Don't be afraid to network with other designers, people in your field, people who are your competitors.
Yeah.
Network with those people.
I would go as far as to say no one's a competitor.
No, yeah. 100%, man. Like, these people that you think are your competitors that are your child... Okay, once in a while you're going to meet somebody...
If they're a real jerk...
Who's a backstabber.
Yeah. Then... They're just a bad person, though. They're not your competitor.
Yeah, but
they're,
for the most part, we're all on the struggle bus, right? When it comes to being a creative, successful, we're all on the struggle bus, and
they are either currently paying the price towards success,
Yeah.
or they have paid it.
Yeah.
That's guaranteed. If they see in you that you are either paying it or you have had paid it,
yeah,
they're on board with you.
Yeah, there's nobody in this profession who sees you struggling, like really honestly trying. And I don't mean like, slacking and I pirated this and I tried a few. You're not going to get anywhere with that. If you're genuinely trying to be good at what you do,
people will lift you up.
And then the people in your community, in your peer group, they'll see that and they'll plug you.
Yeah.
They really will. And if you network with those people and you plug them as well, which I know is counterintuitive at first, because you're like, I don't want to give somebody else my business.
No.
They'll recognize that and they'll start plugging you if they're good people. And most of the time, that's the way it works. Like, we all stick in for each other. Especially if you're somebody who can help me on a job. I'm constantly looking for people. Now that I've gotten to a level where I need someone to help me, I'm constantly looking for somebody who I can see their stuff and I can be like, oh, this person's actually good and they're trying to be good and I could use help on this project. I'm going to call that person and I'm going to try to get them in. And through me, you're going to get contacts that you may never have had a chance to get.
Yeah.
And that's how my career has gone up. Is
1,000%.
I've met people who've seen my work and they're like, oh, Mike's good and he really does a good job. And they plug me to their boss or their director, and that director calls me and says, hey, we want to work with you, and goes on from there.
Yeah.
Network.
Okay, my fourth point. Be curious and exploratory.
Okay.
There's a idea in today's day and age that I actually found really interesting. I just got 3 books on 3 different aspects of physical health, right? So the food and brain relationship, one called Peak, which is about pro athlete performance, and another book on how diet affects so one on how diet affects your mood, one on pro athlete performance, and one specifically on the culture's reliance on carbohydrates and sugars as opposed to proteins, fats, veggies, like general, like the idea of what we think health is. Each one of these books started with an argument on behalf of multi-discipline knowledge and the application of multi-discipline knowledge. I think in today's day and age, and the researchers that I have seen seem to back up the idea that in a time period where AI can create art that is arguably better than anything I can make, can take photos on a cell phone, higher quality than what my camera can if I don't know how to use my camera, can film and edit videos in an interesting way and put them together with music. Like, there's always going to be someone out there that is better at one thing than you are.
Oh, okay.
However, if you are curious and exploratory and always seeking to expand your knowledge and your skill in the field that you're in and in other aspects of your field that might come back in and benefit your field.
Okay, that's what you're saying.
You will grow as a creative and you'll grow in your ability to market and be successful.
Yes.
If you're a photographer, like I was and am, venture off into videography. Learn a little bit more about lighting. Learn about model posing and detail photography. Grab a macro lens and stick it on your camera. Go back to film and learn how that operates and works, because it'll teach you about lighting and exposure and why the mechanics of your camera operate the way they do. Learn about human biology and how our eyeball works, because guess what? The camera is based entirely off of this lens that we have in front of us and the way that it magnifies, projects, and sees the world. Understand how human psychology translates how their photo in a picture looks to them in their mind, in their eye. Why do the people you're taking photos of not like how they look? Is it because they're fake smiling and potentially they see something that they never see in your photos? Learn how to communicate. Learn how to tell jokes. Learn all of these different multifaceted disciplines, because everything that you learn, if you're curious about the world, everything that you learn can be brought back into your creative field and can be valuable and can become made valuable because of it.
Yeah.
That's my last point.
I would add, the one thing I would add to
Don't add to that.
Okay, I won't add to it.
I don't want them to learn anything else.
One thing I was going to say is that, I forgot. Damn. You joked and
Be
I
curious,
forgot the whole thing.
multifaceted.
Well,
if you're exploring the world.
Yeah, oh man. Just when it comes to learning, because you made it sound like there was so many things that so many topics you just covered. Mm-hmm. And it does feel like a lot. It feels like a ton of stuff to learn. But when you take it one step at a time, it's not that bad. It really isn't.
But it's not about the
it's
broad
a lifetime
scope.
of learning.
It's not about the broad scope.
Yeah.
What it's about is being open to every area of life having value towards your creative expression. I know a lot of people that grab a camera and they think all I need to do to become a good photographer is learn what this camera does, or learn how to take or not learn what this camera does. Take it to auto and learn about the person in front of me. It's not the way. No. The way is to understand that everything in life, everything, brings back value to what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you're a painter, you're an artist, you're a musician, everything tells a story.
Yeah, you're always going to be better if you're willing to dig into what makes something work good. One thing that I was going to say is when you were talking about AI, and I think it's important to learn AI too.
Yeah,
I do.
I'm saying what I was saying there is like I just saw a video of an AI commercial.
Yeah.
Where it was an AI musician, who wrote and sung their own song.
Oh, yeah, I think
and it looked a little glitchy and it looked a little odd, but it's only been 6 months since we've had AI existing.
Oh, yeah.
And so in 6 more months from now, they're going to be better at writing, scripting, and creating social media viral songs than most of the musicians and all of the musicians that are struggling to make it. So what can those musicians do that'll be different from what a computer algorithm can do? Well, they can be a person. And what does a person excel at? A person excels at having a multi-dimensional range of knowledge that gets applied to one particular thing. AI doesn't understand the human experience in a way that pulls it towards a relatable subject.
I think we need to understand how to pull AI into our tool set.
Absolutely.
Instead of letting AI take over.
If I was still a wedding photographer right now, I would no doubt be using AI to transform my wedding photos into like the most beautiful, amazing. You take the couple and you're like, hey, here's some packages for you. Do you want to be a night? Do you want to be in a galaxy? And then you take some wedding photos that you are taking with the purpose of putting them in this location and make them like in a villa, like take their image and transport them to an elven village, and suddenly their photos are a entirely different thing.
I would start before that, and I do. We actually have been using AI for some of our stuff, but we use it for inspiration. We say, like,
absolutely,
okay, this is what we're going to do. We plug it into the AI, see some ideas the AI comes with. AI is usually kind of like wonky.
In the board game world, they're using it for prototyping.
Yeah, because you can look at it and you can be like, okay, that's close. It's almost like asking a little kid what their idea is.
Yeah,
and every once in a while, a little kid will be like, this, and you're like, you know what? That's not a bad idea.
A couple years from now, though, that's going to be a teenager, not a little kid.
It'll be a teenager. It'll still be a teenager.
Yeah.
It's not going to be an experienced artist. And that's the thing is, like, AI will never get past, because, well, the way it works now, it will never get past what we've created because it's looking at what we've created to generate its ideas.
For now.
So if you are a true creative and you're coming up with original ideas, even if you're basing them on something that AI has come up with, you're gonna surpass the AI just by, your creativity alone. So, anyway, but yeah.
What's your fourth one?
My last point, and this is the point that I try to make to every new professional creative or creative professional that's trying to get into the industry. Above all things, this is the most important point I can make. Your portfolio comes first. And what I mean by that is you have undoubtedly, if you're trying to pursue a career in this profession, come across people who, even though you've done something that hands down, based on your experience, this is the way this should go. And they're like, oh, no. I want an animated kitten, and I want, like, sometimes we're chasing the money. And we're going to do whatever that client is like, well, no, I want you to do this. The money's important, don't get me wrong. But when you chase the money and the client is determining the outcome of the work, that work is not going to get you more work. Your portfolio being successful is what's going to get you more work. So if you prioritize making the client happy, even if the project comes out looking like crap, just so you could get paid, you're not going to get more work. People who are professionals are going to look at your portfolio and be like, ugh. But if you prioritize your portfolio and you make sure that whatever you're doing, or majority of what you're doing, because let's be honest, every once in a while we need the money and we just got to make somebody happy. But if the majority of what you're doing is quality work, and your portfolio, reflects that, you're going to get more work.
That is different from my first point, which is do what sells. I did not tell you to do what the client thinks is good quality work. I said do what sells. Work in the genre and venue
that fits,
that will be marketable, that will be employable. That doesn't mean that you skimp. You perfectly align. Your thing is saying always do your best quality, and don't let outside voices who know nothing about color profiles or design or artistic endeavors inform the way that you create.
Yeah, absolutely.
Except for that one or two times, because we all get that.
Yeah,
we all get that
every once in a while.
And if they're scrolling through your portfolio and you give them a look, give another.
It looks like I'm going to be eating ramen this week, and you're like, maybe I'll just.
Well, I'm saying if another person's scrolling through, like if I'm scrolling through another photographer's like pictures, and they're all beautiful, and then I come to the one couple that have like a Star Wars theme and like galaxies behind them,
and it looks terrible.
I can just look up and go like,
I know what happened. It's cool.
Yeah,
do it, man.
Yeah,
you do you.
No, I think it's a great tie around, because my first point is do what's marketable and sells.
Yeah,
and your last point is don't compromise value or your creative endeavor for the
No.
sake of money.
Never works.
And so both have to be in line.
Yeah.
Every wedding I did, like, I tried to do my very best work, and when a couple would be telling me, like, hey, let me pose this way, or let me put my hand here, I'd be like, yeah, I'd take that photo, and then I'd pose them a way that looks good, and then I'd choose a background that actually makes sense. Or, when I was a really good photographer, I got bold, and they'd say, like, let me take a photo near the fountain over there. I'd be like, no, the fountain's going to look really ugly on camera.
Yeah.
Like, you actually can't take
Once
that photo.
you get good
Do you
enough,
know
you can
why?
say that.
Because the fountain looks stupid.
Yeah.
The water freezes, droplets are like hanging over your head. You're gonna look awful.
Busy. There's
we can
a
take
ton
it if
of
you
crap
want.
going
I'll
on.
prove to you that it looks bad. Do you want it? No. Let's go take it. Let's go do it. Yeah, good.
Yeah. Exactly. No,
Yeah.
those are some good points, I think.
Out of everything on this channel, this might be the one category we know the most in.
Yeah.
Because we've done it for the longest amount of time.
Yes.
But even here, if you're watching, if you're engaging, I'd love to know what knowledge you have, what you've experienced in your journey. Like, I feel very confident about our lists,
Yeah.
but I also feel confident
you
that
agree?
I also feel confident that there's areas of our list that we haven't defined well enough.
Do
or
you disagree?
aren't there?
Do you think Jesse's an idiot and I'm a genius?
Probably. Yeah, that's about right.
Weigh in.
That's about right.
Say something in the comments below.
We
Say
still
Mike
don't,
is right.
We don't
Jesse's
have
wrong.
an ending to these videos yet.
No.
We've got the
If you're somebody,
yeah, go do something.
something.
Yeah, do something. I want to cuss at them now. I'm not going to because that's
say it.
No, I'm not going.
Do
to.
something, mother. If you're somebody, go do something.